My name is Jane Chevalier, the podcast host of Healers in Business, where we discuss all things necessary for starting, running, and pivoting in a business when you are a body worker or healer, including marketing, selling, boundary setting, and more. As the owner of Circular Path Consulting, I'm a specialist in business strategy for entrepreneurial body workers, where I help my clients find new directions that bring personal satisfaction and financial fulfillment. Welcome to episode 2 of Healers in Business, where I will be interviewing Donielle Saxton. She has been exploring the worlds of the body and the worlds of the unknown since she was 12. She has officially been doing massage and body work for over 26 years and started sharing her intuitive knowledge for around 15 years. Donielle assists people in finding their joy, peace, power, and fun. Please enjoy episode 2, Pivoting to a Higher Plane. We've known each other for a while, I think since like 2010. You were one of my teachers, I believe, at Colorado School of Healing Arts, my massage school.
Yeah.
Yep. And then eventually I got to TA with you in a class.
Oh, yay. Which class did we TA? M3?
I think it was actually sports massage.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been like 13 years, but I don't think we really connected since. So it's really fun to reconnect.
Definitely.
So yeah, Donielle, tell me a little bit about what you've been up to lately with your intuitive readings and all your massage stuff.
Well, it's been a journey. As I think it is for everybody. About 6 years ago, I had a car accident, and some of those injuries are residual, a little bit chronic, and so it's changed how I do my massage. And then, of course, we had the pandemic hit, and I decided that I have been doing massage for so long that maybe I should retire from it during the pandemic. Some of it is I do live at home with my parents. They're older. They're in great health, don't get me wrong, but I didn't want to be the reason anything came back to the house. And so I was doing some odd jobs, and then I got the hit that it was time to get out again. And I was offering virtual sessions. I had some people do some virtual readings with me during the pandemic. And now I am a head session coach at a place called OsteoStrong. I'm at the DTC location. It's for bone health, which is awesome because I get to utilize all my knowledge for the body there, but I don't have to take it home with me. And then just, I don't know, maybe half a year ago or so, I reopened shop, but I'm focusing mainly on cranial sacral Reiki energy work. And then I also can do the intuitive readings, energy clearings in person. At that office, I can do them virtually. And then I have done some metaphysical fairs, and a couple of times a month, I am at a store called Confia Collective on South Pearl Street next to the Pottery Guild, and I get to do readings there one Saturday or Sunday a couple of times a month. So I'm excited to be doing that, and it's a lot of fun.
Oh my gosh. So it sounds like you get to do so many amazing eclectic things that are touch-based and non-touch-based.
Yes, for sure.
But all obviously very healing.
Yes.
Tell me about so it sounds like, COVID changed things and you kind of had to figure out a way to pivot, but tell me about how you started getting into the intuitive readings.
So basically, like I said, like in the intro, when I was 12, it was a big summer for me. Had a contest with a cousin on who could give the better back rub. They did. I'm not competitive at all. And that's how I ended up going down the massage route. With different things, like in high school, I took an athletic training course, got certified as a physical therapy aide, made my way through college with a degree in kinesiology, emphasis psychology, then finally made it to massage school, and many trainings from there. structural integration, cranial, et cetera, et cetera. But that same summer was the first summer that I actually saw a ghost and remember seeing a ghost, I should say. I'm sure I talked to them before, but and I knew enough from reading books and things at that time not to just make that public knowledge. And so I was always playing with that, and seeing how it showed up for me. And oh, I had a dream about this person. Oh, look, I see him the next day. Or the deja vu experiences, or getting messages. I remember being in my martial arts class one night, and my clairaudience sense came in. New couple was there, and I was introducing myself, and he said his name, and her name was Marianne, and all of a sudden the Gilligan Island theme played through my head at the professor and Marianne. I'm like, I looked at him, I'm like, "Are you a professor?" And he goes, "Yeah, how'd you know that?" I'm like, "Oh, you don't want to know." And so when I would be doing massages, a lot of times loved ones would be giving me messages to pass on, and it's not always A, it's am I making that up? Why am I hearing this? And B, is this person gonna freak out if I tell them this? And so I explored a little bit with some people that I figured would be okay with it, and it just kinda grew from there, and I was like, "Okay, it's time to start presenting some of these skills, that I've developed and trained in different things out to the public," which I hadn't been comfortable doing before. So it was slow. And even still, up until maybe, 5 years ago, debating or questioning how I could use some of my skills, because I've been trained in a thing called SRT, spiritual response technique. Although I've taken the classes, I never got certified in it. But how do I take that material and make it my own instead of just going by the book? Um, and and though that's finally started to click in, just, I don't know, in the last year or so, working with an astrocartographer friend of mine. We were just chatting about things, and she gave me a name of somebody who does dowsing work. And
What
yes,
is dowsing work?
so dowsing, sometimes most people know dowsing as people who find water out on the land, and usually you have two rods in your hands and they'll cross or go straight, telling you where different things are at. So if you're trying to find water or power lines or what have you, the dowsing I use is using a pendulum, and I use different charts, like number charts, to get an idea of things, to find out the frequency or the optimal frequency for something, and seeing if that person is in line with that optimal frequency. And then you do certain clearings, using that pendulum. And it's just basically a tool that helps translate from the clearest high self, let's say, or your connection to the divine. That just gives you answers, yes, no, clearing, adding something. It's quite fascinating. And so I've done a class on how to use a pendulum. I know I'm in process of updating that class and presenting it again at some point. And so it's kind of fun, and people can feel it. People might think, well, this is ridiculous. She's moving the pendulum. I'm really not. And but the feeling you get, like, oh, do you feel tinglies on the top of your head? Oh, yeah, okay, so it's working. Or different things like that. So did I
Wow.
explain that clearly or not?
Yeah, definitely. I'm
Okay.
familiar with the pendulum.
Mhm,
I'm familiar with that. I've learned how to do it on myself,
mhm,
but yeah, I've never done it on other people, and I've never heard of the term dowsing, and I never knew you could do it with other tools like the sticks or
mhm.
or the water as a tool. Like I never knew about any of that, and I've never actually had anybody like you who's attuned to it do it to me. So yeah, I've just kind of done my own hacking of doing it on myself, but no official training or anything.
All right, all right.
um that's so cool. So it kind of sounds like in the intuitive realm, it sounds like you kind of have like a handful, or a big array, a vast array of different things you have going on. It sounds like you're able to speak with spirits who have passed. Sounds like you're doing the energy clearings, and you do the card readings, right?
Yes.
And so, like, just from an outsider perspective of someone who's not super familiar with all of these types of modalities, would you say like you're considered a medium or a clairvoyant, or do you not really like to use one certain word for it?
I like to call what I do intuitive readings, because I never know, just like during a massage, I never know how the session's really going to go until I get into it. So Carrie, who's the owner of Confia, she has fun because I get there and I pull out like 5 or 6 different decks of cards. I've got my pendulum and charts, and we just never know what's going to happen during those sessions. I could say I'm a medium. I do say that I have medium abilities. I don't like to publicly say that, because if somebody comes to me and say, I want to talk to my great aunt Ethel, I can be like, well, she's sitting there, but she ain't saying anything. So I don't always have control over who's giving me the information. I try to make it a natural thing, if the person wants to come through, that they're able to use me as a vessel to get their information through. But if somebody comes and says, yeah, I want to talk to so and so, it doesn't always happen like that. And then as far as the clair senses, there's so many of them. And I think, honestly, I think everybody has the clair senses: clairaudient, clairvoyant, oh my gosh, all of them.
Oh, that's at first I was like, what's clair senses? But it's like the 5 senses, like touch, like you said, the audio, the visual,
the smell, the knowing, the seeing. So yeah.
And everybody has this ability.
I believe so. It's just a matter of tapping into it, or listening to it, being willing to tap in to listen to it.
Is there a particular set of tools or process you need to know or be trained in order to tap into it? Or does it just kind of depend on each person?
It probably depends on each person. I have done, like the SRT was one of the first esoteric teaching or trainings I did. And then since then, I have studied with a gal named Janet Bass, who does psychic training. She went to a psychic institute, and so she trains methods on how to tap into that stuff more clearly. So if somebody's wanting more information on that, I send them to her, because she does classes now and then. But I think we all have that innate, like, oh, you hear the phone ring and you're like, oh, that's going to be so and so, and you look and it's so and so. I like to think most of us have had a deja vu experience at some point in time. Oh, I've been here before. What?
And do you know what that's all about? What deja vu specifically?
Interesting you ask, because I was having this conversation with somebody randomly yesterday. There could be many theories. I like to think of time not as linear, but more as spiral or circle or something like that. And sometimes maybe that timeline just touches at a different point, I don't know. I don't have a definite answer on that, but that's my theory.
Like maybe it's like your past or future self popping in for a moment with a memory or something.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
So clairsentient would be you sense something. Clairvoyant, you see something. Clairaudient, you're hearing something. Claircognizant, you just know something. A lot of times some of the things I get are just claircognizant. And I know while I was teaching, there were times when I was a channel, I guess, and things would just come through my mouth. I'm like, wow, that sounded really good. And of course somebody would be like, can you repeat that? I'm like, no, I really can't, because I have an idea of what I said, but I don't know what I just said. So That's the cool thing about being a channel, I guess, is you're like, wow, where'd that come from?
And do you feel like it's open like all the time, or have you had to learn how to like turn it off or put certain boundaries around it, depending on, what you're doing and maybe it's not an appropriate time
Oh yeah.
to be channeling that?
Oh yeah. Definitely you learn how to have some boundaries. You learn how to protect your energy because there are energy vampires out there, even in the massage world. So learning how to, put a little energy shield around yourself, let's say, or protective
Hmm.
shield or whatever you want to call it. And everybody's got their own way for doing it. There's 1,000 ways to protect yourself. You just have to figure out which one works best for you. Um, like I can give somebody ideas, but they have to play with what really works for them.
Hmm.
And there's certain situations where I don't want to get any messages. And then there's certain situations where I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh, I should open myself up right here and see what comes through.
Mm.
Like, I guess, example, I was at a friend of the family's funeral, um, and she wasn't that old. And I'm like, huh, she hasn't come to me. I haven't sensed her in a while. And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh, maybe I should tap in and see if she's here watching her own funeral.
Mm.
And it was a good conversation.
So
Um,
she showed up.
she showed up. Yep. And it's always shifting and changing too. Recently, I was downtown across from the Brown Palace, the Navarre building, I guess what it is. There's a Western Art Museum there, and some friends wanted to go for one of the friends' birthday, and so we went into the building. And this building is a little older than the Brown Palace, and it has quite the history. And it was like a school for the girls, and then at a certain point, it got sold, and whoever bought it, they were gambling one night and lost the deed to it. And I'm totally paraphrasing. I might have the story completely wrong. Um, but then it became a brothel. And then from there, it was other things. But it was a brothel when the Brown Palace opened, and they created a tunnel underneath so that the guests at the Brown Palace could be escorted over if they wanted to. And there was like a bar and stuff. And so we were talking to one of the docents, and we're like, so, are there spirits around? Have you guys noticed anything crazy? And she's like, well, we can't keep any night guards.
Oh boy.
And they had blocked the tunnel at one point in time when they were remodeling the building, and a spirit, we're gonna say a female spirit, came running through the tunnel saying, "Where's the beer?" So it's kind of cool. But as we got higher on the floors, there's only 4 stories to the building, but as we got higher up, I could feel more of the brothel type of energy.
Hmm.
When we got to the 4th floor, I literally had to hold on to the wall because the energy was so strong. When we make our way around, it's kind of in a U shape. I'm sitting down at the last little group of paintings. And this whole time on this floor, I'm feeling one of the madams walking next to me.
Hmm.
And I sit down and she sits next to me. She puts her arm around me, and literally she is talking to me in my ear in full sentences. Normally, when I get messages, I don't hear full sentences in my ear. I
Oh,
get an idea of what I need to say. She was literally talking to me about her day. And
oh
don't
my
ask me to
gosh.
say what she told me because I don't remember anymore, but it was very cool. I'm like, "Oh, this is sweet." It's
Oh my God.
it's freaky but sweet.
I just got chills as you were sharing all of that. Like, well, that's my question is how do you not get scared?
When I first saw that ghost when I was 12, my cat was sleeping on my bed. She didn't wake up. I'm like, "All right, this isn't scary." So I've just tried to maintain an openness to see what they're trying to give me information about.
Mm.
Um, and luckily, I don't necessarily deal with the demonic world, and I don't
Mm.
have a desire to do that. I know people who, that's some of the things they do is deal with exorcisms or things
Oh.
like that. I've kind of hopefully set it up that I don't have to deal with that. because I don't want to take any of that home. I've had dreams of people coming to me wanting to know if they should stay or they should pass.
Wow.
And so it's a conversation of, I cannot make that decision for you. Here's your pros, here's your cons. Look at these things. And I wake up and I'm like, okay, it was so vivid. I'm like, is that person, I have to like do a social media search. I'm like, are they still here? Or waiting for them to contact me, which never happens, but it's so real, like, as you understand, that it's just like, okay. So
do you know why, like the woman in the brothel, like I have so many questions. Like, do you know why, number one, whether they stay or go and stay in a particular place, like the old brothel, and B, like why some might have stronger abilities to communicate, like that woman who communicated with you versus the others?
Great question.
And if you don't know, you don't have to know all the answers to it. Just whatever your sense is.
Honestly, I think sometimes they stay because they had fun doing what they were doing. Maybe they don't know they're dead. I don't know. I don't have a direct answer on that one.
Yeah.
And then I think why some come through stronger or not, maybe it's just where you're at that moment, how strong is your antenna? How open are you to receive? Like I had, like a month later, I was at the, oh my gosh, just went blank. The hot sulfur springs. And I was in one of the pools. It was morning, like pretty early in the morning. And there's one of the pools, natural pools up there that has kind of like a waterfall and stuff. And I was able to sit in there by myself for a moment. And I just was feeling super connected. And I'm sitting there and all of a sudden I get the sense that this Native American indigenous healer that used to live on the land was with me. And he started talking in my ear, like the same sort of thing. It was like, wow. And he was guiding me doing some healings, and it was a total level up experience for me. It was quite awesome. He's still here, like, and I can still hear him with his drum, like he was doing a drum beat for me for the healings, like doing whatever he was doing, and I can still hear that drum beat if I'm doing a healing.
Oh my gosh.
I still know he's with me.
Oh, it almost sounds like he's like a guide for you.
Yeah.
Or something, or a healer for you.
Yeah.
So like that almost sounds like seems different, like versus like the woman you interacted with who's like a spirit versus that man. It's almost like he showed up as a healer or a guide for you too.
Right. But she should just be, that could be a level up experience with her too, is, all right, you're ready to level up. Here's your sign.
Definitely. And like when you do readings with people, besides doing like relatives or friends who have passed, do you ever, because like I've had readings before where they're like, oh, like there's particular guide showing up for you and like these are messages they have specific for you, and I don't know these people. Like, do you, like, what do you feel is the difference like between like someone you know versus someone you don't know who's there to show up and help you in a way?
Right. I don't usually get information from the guides. I've got other colleagues and friends who get that information, and that's fascinating to me. Like they talk to the angels, they talk to the masters. When I do an intuitive reading, a lot of times I'll start with this new deck of mine that is the masters. And so this deck tells me who's working with this person right now. And that gives me a tap in on where the session's going to go to based on the reading of that card. But I have friends who channel Metatron. I sit in, one of my friends does a monthly Metatron call, and I'll sit in on that.
What's Metatron?
Metatron is a ascended master.
Will you tell me more about that?
So above the angels, I guess. So they've mastered something. And so like Kuan Yin is considered a master. Metatron's like the head of all the ascended masters. Then you've got like galactics from different
Oh.
planets, and then you've got the angels and the archangels, and sometimes one of the like an archangel could also be a master. I don't know. I just go off of what other people have showed me on that information.
Well, it sounds like I like immediately visualized Earth, and it almost sounds like the higher up you go, it's almost like the further away they are from Earth and like
Right.
into the universe, I want to
To
say.
the
Like it sounds
ethers, yeah.
like you said the masters and the galaxers.
Galactics.
Galactics. Those it
Yeah.
sounds like those are like higher, like they go further versus it sounds like angels are maybe closer to Earth or something.
Could
Do you
be.
think?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Probably levels of, yeah. I haven't spent a whole lot of time exploring that one. I'm sure
Okay.
I could, and I sure I could get information, but
But the point being is that you specifically don't work with guides, you work more with relatives or people who are still connected to living humans here.
yeah. Although I have to say, I did a reading on Saturday morning for this couple, and the masters on the deck that came out, he got 2 cards. Usually that doesn't happen. Usually I just want 1 card, but these were right on top of each other. And the first one was Mother Mary, and the second one I don't remember what master it was. But Mary was coming through for both of them, and she was about love. And she was totally giving me information on like a wedding for them. I'm like, okay,
Aw.
I hope I'm not overstepping my bounds here, but are you guys getting married? And like, yeah. So she was giving me information about their wedding. So I guess I do channel them sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. That's
Just
and it's like cool that there's like practical tips and it's not just all like when you talk to them and get information
yeah.
and like the wedding versus like it doesn't have to be like this deeply soul profounding
Oh
thing
no.
every time.
Oh no. No, it's yeah, when it was fun, like one of the last little tidbits was like, okay, I'm like, I know this is gonna sound cliche, but don't put the ring in the glass of champagne. And they totally laughed. They're like, we were just talking about that yesterday. I'm like, okay. So,
Yeah, talk about confirmation.
right.
um how long did it take you to get to this point where you can just like quickly like do it? It's like your massage skills where you're just like, I can just like boom out like a 60-minute full body massage focused on shoulders and neck, like the second nature, like the back of my hand. Like, how long did it take you to get to that point with your intuitive readings and just being able to like, whip out the cards, like, and then like, have somebody show up?
Right. It's taken a long time. I mean, I could have probably done it before, but there is the part of trusting what the information you're getting because it is coming through your brain. So it sounds a lot like your internal voice, anyways. And so it's like there's this part of you asking, am I making all this up or am I really getting something? And then taking that step to go out and say, I'm getting something and I'm going to present it to somebody else. Are they going to think I'm crazy? Um, or am I saying something really bizarre? But things that have come through that you just randomly say sometimes have the most profound effect on somebody. Um, and so it's taken a long time, and I still sometimes struggle with that. I don't even want to say confidence, but that knowing, it's like, am I really making this up, or is this really something coming through? Um, so yeah, it took from the time I was 12 till probably mid 30s before I really wanted to admit to anybody that I was getting these things, and then only a selective few. And then it's really been in the last, probably 14, 15 years that I've gotten the hit that I need to just say what I need to say to people.
Hmm. How how has that felt for you, that change?
It's a progression, and like I said, you still fight it now and then. You're just like, but it's just like, okay, trust, and just say it. Even if it sounds like the most bizarro thing. You're like, this is gonna sound crazy, but blah blah blah, and they're like, oh my God, that's totally blah, blah, blah. And you're like,
Do you get to like meet up with other intuitive readers or clairvoyants and like kind of hang out in the connection or whatever you say it in that state together and like be in it together? I guess I'm trying to say.
yeah. So that's one of the fun things about doing a metaphysical fair
Okay.
is we all know each other at this one fair that I work at, called the Sacred Way Fair. And it's totally fun to walk around, and there's so much energy that day. Sometimes you just have to walk outside because it's so strong in the rooms, because
Mm.
there's so many different readers. But I have acquired friends through the years, and we'll go for lunch or whatever. Like, one of my friends that we sit right next to each other at this fair all the time, and we live close to each other, but we had never gotten together just to hang out. And so we had lunch one day, and I was telling her about the madame, and she can get specific messages. Like, she's like, oh, I'm like, what? And she goes, oh, she was your mother. So I was like, so she'll talk to specific guides for the person, and she can delineate who's who. And so it's fascinating to me to work with
Mhm.
these people too. I'm like, okay, how'd you get that?
Mhm.
How can I do that too? Or do I need to do that? Or is it okay just to do what I do? So,
And so
and
do
then there
you
is a group too locally. Well, not locally, not only locally, but they're on Meetup, and I forget how many countries they're in now and how many states they're in, and it's called Awkwardly Zen. And they have all these different events that you can go, and it's a safe place to explore your spirituality.
Hmm.
And so you can see what all the different types of things are and decide what you want to explore next.
That is so cool.
Yeah, and it's really fun to hang out with that group too when we get together, because they started locally and then have expanded. So yeah, they're a great group as well.
That's so cool. It's like finding your people and being able to fully be you and
Yeah.
not feel like you have to hide any part of it or question it. Like, does it feel like when you're around those people, you're like, oh, of course, everything I'm hearing and seeing is absolutely true. There's no question about it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It was almost like being in New Orleans for the first time. It's like walking around. I'm like, anything goes here. This is way cool. Like, you can walk down the street, they've got buskers of every kind, they've got parades. People can just be themselves there. It's totally fun.
I love New Orleans too. It's great. It's so fun. Um, that's great. And I feel that's so important to be able to have your community, your people who know what it's like to, maybe be on the outside and feel like you can only be your full expression of yourself around certain people.
Yeah.
It's so important to have that community.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you feel like I just had a follow-up thought to when you mentioned the the metaphysical fair. What was it called? The Sacred Way?
Sacred Wayfair.
The Sacred Way Fair. Do you feel like that's just like a hub for spirits to show up and spirits can be like, oh, there are my readers. Like those are my translators who see me and who can hear me. Like it's just gonna like attract them like a swarm of bees or
I had never thought about it like that, but that sounds right.
from like a business perspective, do you think it's effective going to big events like that, like one-off events?
I really love doing the Sacred Way Fair, and it's exposure, getting your name out there. And I'm starting to have people come to me that have seen me the first time at a different fair, at some sort of fair that I've been at, done readings
Mm.
at. So it's slow, but yeah, I think that is a great way to get your name out there, because a lot of times people don't know how to search for that sort of thing, and so they go to a fair to find somebody that resonates with what they're looking for.
Yeah, exactly. How would somebody find a thing like that if there wasn't the fair, they couldn't make it? Like, what do you think is the best way for them to find someone like you?
Yeah, so I've got my website, and I should have it where somebody, can search certain words. I think word of mouth is a big way. I think that's probably the most effective way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, even going to a smaller type of fair and seeing all the different people doing readings, because you don't have to go to the big ones. There are small ones around, and they'll advertise like Facebook and stuff like that. Sometimes having a high profile location is always a good thing too, but you're driving down the street and you see somebody with a psychic sign out in front of their place, and you're just like, hmm.
Yes. Why is that? Like, I feel like, so for someone like you, who you've got the gifts, you're doing it, but then I just see those signs and they're just so tacky. And I feel like that's what turns people off to things like this. It's like, why?
Right,
Why do they have such horrible marketing? And are those people, are they legit, or are they actually doing all this? It's like, no one's going to do this and pretend to
right,
do it. Right.
right,
Like, yeah, it's just those people. We need to give those people a rebranding. That's what we need to do.
right.
Um, but I just had another question pop in my head about this. When it comes to getting readings from an intuitive reader like you, is it something you want to do like every now and then, like a special thing, or is it something that you can do so often, like how often you'd get a massage, or how often you'd see a life coach or a therapist, like kind of be like this, like, I don't like therapy, I don't like getting my body touched, but like this can be my go-to person to like help me with life's problems.
Right. I have one gal who was doing a few sessions regularly, like every couple of weeks for a specific issue she was working through. Um, and I think it's resolving as we speak. Almost there. I think she starts a new position next week. And so I don't know how often I'll see her. So a lot of times people will come more often if they've got a specific issue they're working with. And then if nothing's going on, they don't necessarily come and get a reading. Like at the shop I work at, she puts a little chalkboard outside and it says intuitive readings today, because she's got somebody different on every weekend.
Mhm.
And so I think sometimes you're just walking down the street and you're like, oh, intuitive reading, that kind of sounds fun. Let's see what it's about. So usually, for the most part, I've had a few people who have specific things they want me to give them answers for, which is a bit unnerving. But
Like, tell me who the love of my life is.
right. Not usually the love of the life, but usually, different things like career or what's my next step. Or I'm like, "Mm." And the thing that people, it's great to get confirmation that you're on the right path, or let's switch this way, or let's look at it a different way. But I always do this disclaimer is we have free will. You can go outside, and what I tell you in here, you can go outside and turn right instead of left, and it's going to change everything.
Mhm.
So it doesn't necessarily mean I was wrong. It just means that you made a choice and that has shifted where you were originally going down the path.
Like, you're seeing them and everything around them for that exact moment in time.
Yep. And I never want to say that I'm predicting the future, because nobody really can predict the future. You might get glimpses of certain things, but again, they can turn right instead of left and it will change the whole scenario.
Would you be able to tell me like who your perfect avatar or client is? Like, who do you love? Who do you enjoy working with most? A specific clientele?
So I really enjoy when you get feedback from the person that you're reading for. I've had people that are very stoic and don't want to give anything away. Well, then I don't know if I'm actually getting right information or not, because you're not giving me any feedback. I love when, like, one of the people I was reading for was fair skinned, and I could tell I hit something accurately. They would blush head to toe. I'm like, all right, that resonated with something. Okay. And when you can have a fun time about it, when you
Mhm.
get to laugh and enjoy yourselves and not take it all so seriously.
Mm.
I love that.
So
And
maybe,
when somebody, gets something out of it, like they're like, "Oh my god, that helped so much. Thank you."
yeah, definitely. So like someone who's maybe open and who's fully engaged.
Yeah.
and like that is maybe excited about it.
Yeah, because I've had days where I'm back there reading and I'll come out and I'm like, oh my God, that was like the worst 3 sessions because they were quizzing me on everything and they were fighting me on everything. And
Mm.
I've had one person say, that doesn't sound anything like me or what's going on. I'm like, fair. I reshuffled the cards and reread it. And then I went back afterwards and using my pendulum, I'm like, how accurate was my first reading? And it says 100% accurate. So I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
there's something there that they don't want to look at. I'm not going to fight them on it.
definitely. That's like you want to work with like receiving from them just as much as they are from you, and it's like a perfect match. That's just
Reciprocity.
yes,
Reciprocity.
reciprocity.
Yeah. The
It's
word that, yeah.
just the best, and it's like you wish you could have that with every client.
Yeah. But the ones that, fight you a little bit also, make you delve a little deeper too and study a little more or whatever, or make sure you're getting things you're supposed to be getting. But at the same time, it's lovely to have the feedback that you're on the right track.
Yeah. And like the to those people who might not be the easiest client, like they're there for a reason and you're giving them something, even if they're not admitting it out loud.
Yeah.
You're still helping them.
Yeah. And that's
Yeah.
just like with massage. Sometimes those are the ones that come back over and over again because you actually did make a difference, even though you're like, oh, that was a horrible session.
Yeah. Totally. If you're okay with that, I just wanted to take it in a little bit of a direction and ask about how has opening yourself up to this side of your practice and business changed your business and your overall life?
Yeah. I know my clientele really wish I was still doing full body massages. And I know they understand that I just can't now. It has slowed down, but I also know the more energy I output on getting people to know what I do, that it will build back up. And it
Mm,
has been building back up and different opportunities have been presenting themselves that so I'm really excited to see where it heads. So
mm. So it sounds like your ultimate, like one of your goals is to really have this be the full front picture of what you do is the intuitive readings and that side of things.
possibly I am a Gemini, so I like I like both aspects, and it is fun to work with people with the cranial and Reiki and spot treatment work
Mm,
too, because I can still make a difference that way.
mhm.
Yeah, it's hard to narrow it down, and obviously that shows.
You're still enjoying the lighter body work though.
Oh yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah.
But no full on massage.
No full body, no structural integration sessions right now. And interestingly enough, none of my injuries were from doing massage, even though I've been doing it 26 years. They were all outside injuries, so
Mm.
I pride myself on that.
Yeah, no, that's a huge accomplishment for sure. Like you were doing something right to be able to keep doing it for that long. Well, before we wrap up, is there anything else that you'd like to share about our conversation or the realm of intuitive readings and clairvoyance?
I do also host a meetup group and Zoom call once a week. It varies on the nights.
Oh yeah, tell us about that.
Joy Gathering is the first and third Thursdays, and it's a place where we gather. We go through the numerology a little bit, relevant to what month we're in and things like that. And then a lot of times I'll do a card pull for the collective, and then we share our joys. Because if you look at the frequency map, at the very top, the highest frequency is freedom, and right underneath that is joy.
Hmm.
Um, and so, if we are all focused on our joys for a little bit of time and do a meditation focused on our joys, I like to think that the group energy intensifies things and we are able to help raise the collective energy to a higher energy for a short amount of time. And hopefully, it will continue to expand out. And then the
That's so
following
great.
Tuesday nights is either the Infinity Healing Circle or the Starlight Consciousness, and that is led by my friend Paula, and I do the meditation portion. So she picks a different topic for each of those and expounds on it a little bit. And I do a meditation in the Joy Gathering one too. And it ends up being around a 25 minute meditation. So.
And what do these focus on specifically?
The Infinity Healing Circle is based off Lynn McTaggart's Power of 8. So we do a broadcast of certain words, certain frequencies for 8 minutes, because that's what her research had shown really makes a big difference. And we've seen some changes and things happen from that. And then the Starlight Consciousness, Paula has just started, so I am not as well versed in how to explain that one.
Okay.
But it's all on my meetup group. The Joy Gather is online. It's also on my website.
Yeah, could you tell us, besides your website, so DonielleSaxton.com, it'll also be in the description of this podcast episode. Okay. How else can people find you?
The meetup group, the website, and then they could most likely email me based off of my website.
What's your email?
info@DonielleSaxton.com.
Okay, perfect. info@DonielleSaxton.com. Well, great. Well, Donielle, thank you so much for being my first guest and for sharing all of this amazing information. And I just love the stories you shared and just getting to know more about you and what it is that you do.
Well, thank you, Jane. It's an honor to be your first guest, and I am so flattered that you asked me to be on your podcast, and congratulations to you on this new adventure.
Thank you for joining us on Healers in Business. This is Jane Chevalier with Circular Path Consulting. Please join us next time for a solo episode with yours truly entitled, What Are You Fighting For?